Hello, I'm Christina, and I'm here with Martina, and
Hello,
we
everybody.
and we're your podcast host for Everyday Ordinary Extraordinary Men. Most humans have a lot of preconceived notions and stereotypes about gender. For example, men are tough and silent, forceful. Women can be chatty, manipulative, or emotional. In doing that, we put people in a box and often forget to see beyond those labels. And if we're doing that, I'm sorry. And if we're doing that, someone is not fitting the mold, we might call them a tomboy or a sissy. Those and similar labels often cause discord. But what would a world look like where we go beyond our preconceived notions and understand that we are much more than our gender? That we humans are strong and soft and gentle, deep and powerful, tough, fierce, and open. That qualities are not specific to a gender, that we all have all qualities available to express. What would a world look like where we are all free to be who we choose to be and express all of our emotions? When we allow ourselves to express the so called masculine and feminine qualities within ourselves, we set ourselves free. When we allow others to do the same, we accept all of them and we create synergy, peace, and harmony. Today we have with us our good friend Herman, and we are so happy to have you with us. So, Herman, go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hello, everybody. This is good. I like this. So my name is Herman, Herman Hayles. I'm a typical Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean. My first name is of Spanish descent, Herman. My last name is British, Hayles, right? That's a Caribbean for you, right? I work as a computer programmer. I develop software am I allowed to say the name of the company or that doesn't matter? Okay, Egon Zender, and they're one of those companies. I honestly, if I expect them to be a group of Bond villains, no one's ever heard of them, and they're everywhere, you know. And I'm also a concert flutist. I studied classical flute as a kid, and played with an orchestra for a little bit. Then there was a long hiatus while I did something called help raise a family, right? And recently I'm getting back to that. So as I approach retirement, I will be 100% a flutist. And if there's anything I ever identify myself as, it's an odd thing, but it's, well, maybe not so odd. The thing I love being most is a father. I love it. I adore it. It's insane. I've always been like a kid kind of guy, and to the point where sometimes I've been in places where, I'll start making little things, gather a couple of kids, say, okay, we'll do this, because I'm trying to keep my son company. And so I do this thing. And then after a while, I've noticed parents would actually start dropping off their kids with me as I'm doing this. And then suddenly it was like this was the drop off center. I was like, no, I'm just like making like stupid things with these kids, but they all like it. So I guess you can say with a kid, they recognize their own kind in me. It's like the difference between me and a kid is like I actually have money. So that kind of thing. But anyway, that's me in a really big nutshell.
So, I'd hear in that, Herman, that you haven't lost your sense of curiosity and
No.
playfulness, and that's what they love about you. And I think that that's one of the things I've always loved about you is that joyfulness and playfulness that you, even when we were doing volunteer work and spending long hours doing that, you always had a big smile on your face. You always made it enjoyable for all the people around you, and so I can see why all the children would love hanging out with you too.
We had a saying. I used to do these ridiculously long physical events. We used to say, "I suffer well."
Yeah. So, Herman, can you finish this sentence for us? If
Sure.
you really knew me, you would know. What would we know if we really knew you?
Ooh, okay. If you really knew me, if you really knew me, you'd always know that I'm in love. I'm always in love with something. It's just, So one minute you'll go, Oh, wow, he's running these races. He really must be into fitness. Wow, he plays a lot of chess, and he must be like some kind of great chess player. I'm not, but I'm pretty good. Won some tournaments, and or there's like a person or a flutist. Like for instance, there's this one flutist. I adore her. Her name is Hadar Neuberg, and she's the first flutist that I found because I've been looking for this one expression on the flute that I could never find. And it's like I listen to the human voice, and there's so much expression in the human voice that we can't really imitate on an instrument. And only I've heard Galway do it, and it's very operatic. And just recently, I heard Hadar do it, and it was like this, almost like this cry into the wilderness, and my soul melted when I heard that. And I'm in touch with her as often as I can, but I mean, she's always on tour or something like that. But like everything she does, I want to do.
Mm.
I just want to do everything. And and the thing is, imitation is great because sometimes people are always trying to fix you. Oh, do your own thing. No, sit down, shut up. This is how we learn. Kids imitate you, and then after that, they don't do a damn thing you say, right? And you need a place to start. And she has a particular kind of freedom of expression. So you have, like, say, a jazz flutist. Everything they do great in jazz. You have classical musicians that are great classical musicians. Uh, but when Hadar plays, it can be anything. Like she does these Brazilian choros that, you're just sitting there and you're just grooving, like, yeah. And then she does this other stuff that's like this kind of like this Sephardic, whatever, something in a desert that's just coming out of the nothingness. And then suddenly she's playing, some like Irish jig or something. But it's all good, all authentic, and all playful, and just she's completely self-expressed. She's everything I want to be in a flutist. So like whenever she has a video, I listen very intently, you know. So yeah, I'm always in love with something. Right now it's the flute, I guess.
I love it, and I love that whole image of what she evokes when she plays, no matter what genre of music she's playing. It's really quite lovely, and I could see
Oh,
why you'd
sure.
be so in love with her style
I'll
and her
I'll
music.
I'll send you guys a couple of clips. She's just she did one shorter where she was ba ba da ba da ba 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 da ba da ba da. It was like a nice little beat, right? And then ba ba da ba 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 ba. And then all of a sudden it kind of switches to like a little bit of a Cuban charanga, but it was kind of nice. And then suddenly she starts stamping her feet and she becomes her own rhythm section. And then
Mm.
she starts humming into the flute and starts harmonizing. She's now her own harmony section. And then she just starts ripping into this piece. The goosebumps just right, and I wanted to scream. I'm sitting there like watching this over YouTube. I wanted to just scream. It was so good. And I've taken some master classes with her, and she's really good, gentle woman, just a lovely human being. And what's really great about her is that she hasn't arrived anywhere. She's still exploring. I don't remember. There's some one of the sutras with the Buddha where I think it's the Diamond Sutra. It doesn't really matter, like as if I'm some authority. But anyway, what happens is it's like the Buddha even tells you like to throw this away, like all these sutras, like you can throw this away and then go beyond and beyond and beyond. And that's what she's doing. She hasn't gotten anywhere, and she's going and she keeps going. I love it. I love it. In the world of classical music, we are in a practice room. And look, the happiest days of my life were in a practice room. It doesn't sound like I dated a lot, and I didn't. but but yeah, I mean, I could rip through a scale like nobody's business, and I could do all sorts of great stuff. If you're not a trained classical musician, like the stuff I can do on the flute sounds amazing. For another classical flutist, who's like, oh, okay, he did that, you know. Um, but that's also, it's almost like you can find infinite joy even in a finite space. So I don't want to like say poo-poo classical music because I mean, some of the more joyous moments I've had on stage were like, I remember playing Mendelssohn's Fingal's Cave Overture. It has this really beautiful opening cello sound, and it just starts to swell, and it just becomes this magnificent thing. It's like you're never so happy to have spent 40 hours in a practice room because now you can create this magic on stage. And then comes Hadar. It just everything gets blown out of the water. All rules are out the window. It's magnificent. I don't know where I was going with this, but I'm glad I got there.
It's beautiful, like first it's beautiful to watch your passion, right? It's just really, and right before we started recording and we're like, oh, we really need to catch this, it's really like the embodying. That's one of the things, like becoming the music rather than playing the music, right? That's one of the conversations we had before. But
Mhm.
there's another piece in what you were saying, that reminded me of I've been listening to this song and it talks about just why did we get wings if not to fly, right?
Mm,
And we only get to see a piece of sky and then it gets bigger and then there's the next because we cannot see everything at once,
right,
right?
right.
But the more we open, the more broader our view becomes.
Yes.
And that's what I hear. It's like she really stepped into that. Okay, so there's the first iteration, and then there's the next level, and then there's the next level, and there's the next level, and there's endless levels, right?
Oh
If
yeah,
we're willing to go there, if we're willing to step into the next and the
sure.
next and the
No,
next, right?
absolutely. And not all experiments work. Sometimes it's like, okay, that was something we can leave behind, you know. But that's the beauty. It's like you just keep discovering. You mentioned something just before the call, like what would happen if we just did a little bit of preparation. So you listen to Hadar, and she, it's magnificent. This improvising, and it's free and all that stuff. You can't do that without preparation. It's impossible. I mean, unless you're some, whatever, that was born once every like millennia, right? You can't. So like if you look at some of the stuff she practices, like when we talk, we both go through the same set of scales daily, arpeggios, uh, uh, tone work. It's every day. Ba da 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 dee da 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 ba dee da dee da dee da dee dee da dee da dee da dee da, and it goes on, and then she does work with rhythms, and it's work. It's I mean, for people like us, it doesn't feel so much like work. There are days that it does, but it's easy for us. So like if someone say how often do I practice? I said if I were left to my own devices, I can do 2 hours of practice before I even open a scale book because it's all it's all cooked in here, but if I don't do that and I want to try and express something, um, look, if Usain Bolt, he's fast, but if he doesn't train, fast doesn't happen, so yeah, preparation. But it's kind of like where preparation meets passion, that's when you have the magic,
Yeah.
when you
And
prepare for
it's the
something. Yeah,
stepping, like the preparation is the stepping stone. So
absolutely.
you can then go off and do whatever, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. The a long time ago I took some, oh my God. Oh yeah, I was a teenager. Something got screwy in my head. I was supposed to prepare for a competition. And I and somewhere towards the last week of the competition, I figured everybody's going to be playing the same piece. I'm not going to stand out. And then suddenly I'm like 2 days out and I have nothing, right? But people hear stories like that, and then it sounds. By the way, the end of the story is like I won a first prize in that competition. Uh, the but how I was able to pull it out, it wasn't a miracle. It was I'd already been working on a lot of things. Not even for the competition, just my general work as a flutist. And so really all I was doing the last couple of days was going, nope, nope, maybe, Yep. Nope. And then finally I said, okay, we'll do this one. But so there was like literally months of preparation behind that sudden decision, right? It seems sudden, not so much.
It's interesting because it's such an analogy for life, right?
Yeah.
We think that we all of a sudden step into this, but everything we've done before is a preparation for the next step we're taking, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, which is beautiful, beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you
It
for
all
saying
counts.
that. Yeah, it all
Yeah.
counts. The
Yeah.
good, the bad, the ugly, the
Yes.
beautiful, the challenging, everything is
Yeah.
part of the preparation for that next step.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, Herman, I'm going to give you a multi-part question. You can choose to answer one part of it. It may be one answer for all of it,
Okay.
or you can just choose a piece of it.
Okay.
So, what is your biggest lesson that you've learned?
Mhm.
Or, for example, what was your biggest challenge? What
Mhm.
made you who you are today? What took the most courage? Or when did you take a stand for something that mattered?
Ooh. Okay. Wow. There are a couple of big things in here. Well, there was one thing that happened as a little boy that I didn't know would be the rest of my life. When we came from Cuba, my father said, "Oye, quer ir a la playa? Hey, do you want to go to the beach?" I was like, "Yeah," right. And so we go to Orchard Beach. Now, this is like two Cuban guys coming from Cuba thinking that beaches are warm. No, right? This is the Atlantic, basically, right? So anyway, we take a step into the water and we're just like, right? And so my father was ready to turn back and just like maybe ease his way into the water. What I did was I stared at the water, I took a couple of breaths, and I took a few steps back and I ran into the water. Unfortunately, I splashed my father and he used some he used some words that I won't repeat. And and I just dove in and then there was a sudden shock of cold, right? But then like a second later, it was all fine, right? And that's something I still do to this day. So like I hadn't performed in years, like quite literally decades. And now I was on stage with an orchestra for the first time in about 20, 25 years. And I said to myself, just get the first note out. Everything else will be fine. So whenever I play, people go, wow, you don't have any performance anxiety. I'm like, no, I promise you. There's that critical moment just before I play that first note where it's just like, oh, this is not going to go well. I am so, and then I just go, it's like almost like a leap of faith. I just go, play that first note. The second I play that first note, everything is just nothing. It's just all me, So that's always been there, like just go, just do it. If it's something you really want to do, just do it. And sometimes you will fall flat and it's okay. You won't die, you know. Um, and probably the biggest thing I would say is just recently I had a run-in with my father and it was not good, you know. And this is a guy I idolized forever. And actually this kind of leads into more of the whole masculinity and all that stuff. So I'm from Cuban culture and from time to time, we'll have like a relative that wants to come over. And there have been times where like if we find out it's like a male relative and he's young, we're like, no, because young male Cubans coming to the United States, this is like almost way too much for the psyche to bear. It's like you can do this, you can do that, you have this. And unfortunately, sometimes they bring over a mentality, not all of them, they bring over a mentality that you can treat women a certain way. And unfortunately for them, they find out in a very rude way, that women here actually will not put up with that crap. And they may act, if you're lucky, they're not trained in martial arts. Okay. But they'll do things like report you to the police, and they're not used to that, so there's that aspect. But So like I grew up with women being hit. Now there's a difference between like, and this is a weird difference to make, but there's a difference between giving a woman a quick one across the chops, right? Not acceptable, even though I'm making it sound like it's not a big deal. But that's how we grew up. Now, that's different than actually hospitalizing her, right? So if a guy hit his wife, it's like, oh, okay. If he hospitalized her, then it's not okay. But the thing is, it's like, no, dude, it wasn't okay with that first one either, you know? And but that was so normal. So the thing is, given my own personality, like the stuff that you have inside of you, separate from the culture, it really didn't work at all. And I was always hesitant around women, not necessarily shy, but it took me forever to make a woman know that, look, I'm not one of those guys, right? But the thing is, I took so long that I often, ventured into friend zone. Really, not great for me, but it's like I just didn't want her to think I was like one of those guys, right? So anyway, fast forward the clock, and so some stuff went down. My mother had gone into hospice, so on and so forth, and I needed whatever I needed. I don't know, a sheet to cover the bed. And my father started yelling at me for whatever reason. And like, oh, you're trying to under my just crap he made up. And I turned around and I just said, I just need a sheet. Right. But I mean, I just had it up to just done. And he said, oye, quien manda aquí soy yo, which is basically a very Cuban voice, like, hey, I'm still in charge here. Right. You know, the moment he said that, I saw that, good Lord, he's like an inch smaller than me now. There's, I never thought of violence towards my father, but he was like, okay, maybe you're bigger, you can knock me out. I was like, really, dude, where are you, where is all this coming from, And I realized in that moment how small it was, like it's such a small way of thinking. It's like how quickly we embrace our chimpanzee DNA, right? And in that second, I saw that how much of my life was ruled, like, especially when I'm talking to my father, how much, like, how I'm talking to you will never, it may never be the way I talk to my father. So there's a little bit more machismo when I talk to him, and it's natural. Like, I don't even have to think about doing it. But there's a more sexist, right? So it's not like women can't drive, but I was like, una mujer que tú crees, hey, that was a woman, what do you want, right? And I started to see how much I did that just to be approved of and fit in, right? And it's so not even me. It's like not even close. But as soon as I get into that culture, boom, it's right there. And it's seamless, because at one point it wasn't seamless and I had to do something to become that. So but so for a while I wasn't really, me and my father, we cried and hugged it out, but the next couple of months I was not in good shape. People thought, oh yeah, I know your mother just passed away. I was like, actually, I'd been prepared for my mother passing away for a while. She'd been sick, and we all knew where this was going. It was very sad, but I'm always left with like a kind of like a wonderful warm glow whenever I think about my mom. Really cool lady. But with my father, I couldn't sleep. I had all these weird dreams, and and eventually I was cutting some vegetables in the kitchen. I didn't know I actually liked cooking, but when you become a single dad, it's like, oh my God, I actually, you discover stuff. But at one point, this little voice said, you know, you don't have to please your father. And I was like, oh, oh, okay, got it. And so now when we talk, I still feel myself slipping into that. I go, yeah, actually, no, I don't like any of that. you know, And at one point he said to me, it's interesting. I guess this needed to happen because he says, I'm surprised you agreed with me on anything over the last 30, 40 years. Because he knew that I was different, but I guess something else kept coming out of my mouth. But yeah, it was not good. didn't work for me. And I'm a lot lighter. I'm still a little on shaky ground right now, but oh my God, to not have to be that, carry around that load of crap. And it doesn't work for all my friends. Some of them are still immersed in the culture. I've got a Colombian friend, he's talking to me about his mistress. I mean, comfortably, by the way. Like as if we're talking about, so what are you making for dinner? Right. And I said, guy, what if your woman was doing that with some other guy? You're okay with this? And he just said very simply, hey, but hey, I'm the man. And that's a normal response. People don't get it. It's like I want to take them and go, no, I need you to come into my culture for a little while, keep your mouth shut and just listen. You will be shocked, you know. And but it's kind of like this cultural agreement. We're like, yeah, that's what we do. And I'm like, that's not what I do. I don't have to be anything. I'm Cuban.
You don't have to be what other people tell you that you need to be, right?
Oh
And that's
yeah.
part of what I hear. It's just like you're setting yourself free in this process that you're going through right now. And
Oh
at the
sure.
same time, the pull of wanting to belong, right? Because it's always been done that way. I'm like, well, who cares, right?
Exactly. No,
It's always been
exactly.
done that way. No, I was actually talking to a Dominican man, and he was telling me, we're talking about, like about the culture and about the patriarchy, and he was saying, well, right out of high school, I started working in construction in the city, and that just was the normal culture. So I
Yes.
didn't question it, and I don't take offense of it because that just was normal. And I'm
Right.
like, wow, okay.
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing, right?
yeah. The thing
It's
is,
just
it's like
normal. So because
you're
it always
blind.
was, we just
Yeah,
take it as is what it is, right?
exactly. You know
Rather than
how
examining it.
how do we say it's like the pattern of the wallpaper. In the beginning you notice it. After a while you're like, there's a pattern, really? It's just the
Wallpaper.
wallpaper. Oh yeah, there's wallpaper. And the funny thing is, like, like, look, we all been through the same training, right? And we're always like looking for, like, the don't know that you don't know. And I had no clue. I mean, no clue. I mean, up until January of this year, when I'm like screaming, and my father said something to me, like, he really went right after me. And I said to him, I said, what? I'm a grown ass man. If someone talked to you the way you just talked to me, how long before you raise your voice? And suddenly, for the first time, he was listening.
Mm.
And I said, you do that a lot, and it's normal. You treat me like garbage. And now, for a second, he stopped, and then we're in the living room, and he needs to come by to get something ready. And he goes like, "Oh, side of the minute," just an old Cuban way. And I said, "By the way, that's how you talk to me all the time, like the trash. Okay,
Mm.
you're the boss, I'm the trash, and now you want me to stay around? Okay." And that was the second time I saw him pause. It was just like this moment of clarity, and then it was like the next few weeks of like all the stuff that you didn't know was there. It all just starts forcing its way up all at the same time, and you're like, oh boy, this is not going to be good.
Just slow, one at a time, please, one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time, line up, okay. Angst, okay, anxiety, like, oh, anger, wait, insane amounts of anger, sure, come right on through. And what's the funniest thing is, like, I actually identified something like this decades ago. Someone was talking to me about, well, sometimes the women we choose are our mothers. And I said, I don't get it. People keep saying that. Well, why is it? Because, like, the women I seem to choose seem to be more like my father. Oh,
There's some healing there, huh?
oh my God.
But the other part that I want to say inside of what you're saying is that often as parents, we talk to our children like that, right? We would never talk to a dear friend like we talk to our children
Oh
often,
God, no.
right? Often,
Right,
right?
right.
And like, how dare we talk like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like, well, we're the boss. I'm like, who says we're the boss, right?
Right, right. You know, and I'm glad you brought that up because like there were times when my son was small, I was tougher with him than I really wanted to be. And because, you know, there was like a personality trait that he had. eh, Uh, and I had to explain to his mother. His mother's from Holland, right? She's Dutch. And they have a completely different way with children. And you know, she kind of complained about it. She says, "Oh my God, yeah, the women, the children in Holland just walk all over. They're just rude, you know." And I said, "Look, here's the thing. I need him to pay attention to you because if I'm not here and you say, Lucian, get out of the street, you know, because there's a car coming, you don't need him going, really, why? You know, if I say, oh, Lucian, bang, you know, get out of the street, he comes immediately. So like in the beginning, it was like this, like, look, it's fear, right? But once he hit a certain age, honestly, it's like I just parked all that other stuff out and I became very different with him. It's like there was something always in me that wanted to part from the culture, and 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 eventually, like little by little, I just like look, you know, I would talk. I couldn't be that with him anymore. You know, up until age 7 or 8, I was like, okay, look, I need to be a hard ass with you because we need you to pay attention. It could save your life. But after a certain age, it's like, look, you know, you make this choice over here, it could go this way, and so up to you, buddy. You know, but yeah. Oh my God. Whew. I may have another insight during this podcast.
Well, it's really cool because it is that, you know, it's like the relationship changes constantly, right?
Yeah,
It is, and the children need the boundaries. It's just we have a tendency to talk down to them, right? That's
yeah,
what I'm talking about. And the other thing I get from you talking, sorry, Christina, I'm just gonna be quiet at
Go
this moment, but is that, you know, you might be Cuban by birth, but not, right?
right.
Like your
Yeah,
soul is not that, but you
yeah,
were born into that culture, and maybe for whichever reason,
yeah,
right? Maybe to just see the extremes, maybe to lead the way into something different. Who knows? But it's like, yes, you might by birth be Cuban, but not, right?
yeah, exactly. You know, so when I talk to some of my buddies, yeah, we speak the same language and we can drink the same beer, we laugh at the same jokes, we stare at the same women, right? But there's a boundary that I've set that I'm like, you know, it's okay. I don't have to be a womanizer. It's like I never was, I won't ever will be. It's not in my genes, it's not in anything. There's no point, you know. I mean, look, maybe there's some genetic reason for some other guy to be. God bless you. You don't have to be, but you know, there's things that we've done where, as a culture, where it's like, you know, guys, this is useless. Really, it's just useless. Sometimes I'll see my cousins around their women, and and uh and it's shocking because like they're not horrible. They're not like being bad to them. But you know, the thing is like I only get to peek into the culture, my culture, right? My old culture, every so often, like maybe once or twice a month. And I've been away from it so long that I'm, you know, it's startling to see. Where and the women go like, oh, okay. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you know, like, you know, she's taking away like he's been drinking a little bit too much as she's trying to take away the rum. Right. But you know, just casually there's a party going on. And he just grabs her and then gives her a shot on the butt, you know. And and then she just like, oh, okay. I guess he still wants it. And I'm like, dude, really? She didn't like pop you in the it's like, you know, but no, that's normal. You know, it's like, you know, one day I'm gonna be over there again and they're gonna be like, you know, they're gonna be a little surprised. Not all of it's gonna be pleasant, you know, and I'm okay with that because I can beat them up.
Well, as the situation right now is in Cuba, they can make you disappear. So I don't know which one is.
Right. Oh man. Yeah, yeah. There's some problems right there. Yeah, a lot of problems with food and so on, and the guys that are leading the government, so many of them want to be in America so badly. They like the Yankee lifestyle, but they won't admit to it. And so whenever you give someone that's like a communist or grow up as soon as a country opens up, like take the former Soviet Union, as soon as the Iron Curtain fell, they were buying European soccer teams, you know,
Yeah.
and they are more Western than Western people, and so so I don't buy into a lot of the garbage. My uncle is a news reporter, and sometimes I used to see his broadcasts, and he'll talk to me, and I'll just he tries to lay some of that crap on me, and I'm like, dude, I actually know some history, and no, you don't get to say that. And he said, well, your country. I said, really? Tell me about the saints in your government. And at that point, he stops because I was like, right, good. Now that we understand each other, you know, America has a lot of bad points, but trust me, Satan, it doesn't just wear red, white, and blue, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll now step off of my soapbox.
So, Herman, what is your superpower? What do you consider your superpower?
Mm. Insight. It's slow, but it's there. Uh, so a lot of, like, say for instance, with my flute playing, I can always identify what's wrong. Sometimes it takes me a while, but it's like as long as I as long as I'm quiet and just listen, or just feel, really mostly feel, like how am I moving? What does it feel like when that sound is really good? And what does it feel like when the sound is really bad? And it's the same thing with people. And I've had some odd moments. I had one guy walk into a room once, it's another programmer, and you get that like little ick. And he ended up being like the worst person around me. He was just not a good guy. And it happens from time to time. And there are people you know, that are just really good people. I came up with the term, I call it the Order of the Golden Heart, right? You know, there are people that say, like the people that tend to say, I need me time, I need more me time. They're the people that tend to be the people that were taking me time anyway, except that it wasn't called me time and it wasn't socially acceptable to be the selfish pricks that they were. But now they have the word me time and it's acceptable. And so I just need my me time. I need to be a little bit selfish. It's like, no, you will always were selfish. You always were this. Now you just found another set of words. The people that are really unselfish, there is a thing called like generous to a fault. And I meet them not all the time, but it's like for them to say me time, they wouldn't even understand that. Like I go, hey, how about a little me time for you? And you see their eyes just moving like, well, but this still needs to be done. He has coals like it's always going out, you know. And these people, um, okay, that's going somewhere else. It's almost like they need a champion because they won't champion for themselves because they're too busy giving to another person. And unfortunately, sometimes they find that other person's always taking. And that's the person that needs the me time. It's like, you know, um,
So you're the
yeah,
champion.
I wish I were.
You're a champion for people.
Yeah, it's it's not always good. A short version is I was on a New York City token booth, and these two guys are arguing for whatever two people argue about at a token booth. One guy is like some Eastern European big, with those big wrists and right. But he had the soul of a gentle bear, right? And this little short guy, you can tell only one of them wanted to fight. And so honestly, since I'm used to people acting like animals anyway, it's just going right by me. I couldn't care less. Go ahead, kill yourselves, go. And then what happened was at one point the little guy just reared back and just I mean, like a good that smack that you can hear in Jersey, and really smacked the crap out of this guy. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this got serious. And then the next thing that happened absolutely pissed me off. Everybody made a lot of room, gathered into a circle, and you could see them salivating like, this is going to be good. The slap didn't bother me as much as that. And I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I stepped in the middle of it and I went to the guy and I just said, enough. Now, you can hear by the size of my voice that if I get angry, it could be a little intimidating. It stopped, right? People seemed a little disappointed, but I was so pissed off, not at the two men. I was pissed off at everybody else that wanted to see the bloodshed. Yeah, I've stepped into altercations on the subway platform. Not the smartest thing to do. But there are times where I can't be with that. And it wasn't a conscious choice, it's like, no, no, you know. I need to stop that. I haven't done that in years, and I'm glad. you know, Being knifed is not a pleasant experience. And so, yeah, there's some things that I can't handle. I can't handle well, and I can't see people being bullied. It just no. I've knocked out teeth as a kid. I can't deal with that. Oh boy, this will tell you a little about something about my participation in the CS program. I had some interesting private conversations with some course leaders that they were hearing my opinion in a very full-throated tone, and it impacted my participation. And in a couple of cases, there were some people that, after hearing that, said, a few months ago you said some things, and you know, it, they owned up to not being particularly authentic, right? But then after they cleared the air, they went back to ask me to assist. And I said, I'd love to, but I actually, I was living in New Paltz. And then I got this glare, like, how dare you? And I was just like, wow, that was disgusting. But oddly enough, so I guess if anything, I would learn now is, and even with my father loves me and always has, and he's a human being. And bullies are human beings that had something happen to them. And I don't have to always pull out a sword to, you know, to save people. You can just talk to them. You know, that would be something. It's like kind of like the superpower and the lesson to learn, right? That kind of thing. I don't call it a superpower. I just call me getting pissed off.
I can so relate to the whole bully conversation, but I think I'll kind of add this one too because I think you're going this way anyway. So, if you had a magic wand and could give people any quality, what would it be and why?
Oh, goodness. Compassion. We're not going to make it without it, period. I like what the Dalai Lama said, religion, blah, 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 blah. You can do this, prayers, this, that, and the other. And then compassion is something else. He says, we can make it without the first. We can make it without the this and the that, the pujas and the this and the whatever, but we will not make it as a group without compassion. And you know, people go through stuff and it's not good. Not a lot of, some of it is easy, like, oh, okay, she said no, lick your wounds and move on, right? And there are other things that happen to people that are really just almost beyond forgiveness. And how do you get past that? And there are some souls out there that are so dark that it's almost impossible to see any light in them. And so even as a little boy, I remember I would read about Satan. I'd be told these stories, and Satana, that's how we knew him, right? And oddly enough, he didn't seem anywhere near as bad as some of the people I knew, because some of the people I knew were just bad out of like, they just like doing bad things to people, right? But as a kid, I saw that Satan was just he was jealous. Mommy and daddy brought a new kid home from the hospital, and now we all have to, be nice to this new kid. And it's like love gone wrong, right? And he's acting out. Um, but then I see other people, and it's like, dude, it's not acting out. That's just evil. I've seen more evil in humans than I've seen in Satan. And it's a weird thing to say, but I get where Satan's coming from with other people. I'm like, dude, why? Why is how did that even occur as a thought for you to do that? You know? And so, yeah, so compassion.
I think it's so beautiful. I don't know where this came from last night. So we're on my vacation with my family, and my cousin was over last night, and we were kind of talking about the state of affairs and how divided our country is, and talking about heaven and hell. And I said, my dad told me this story a long time ago about heaven and hell. And he said, hell is this huge banquet table with all the food you could ever want to eat, but everyone has arms that are 4 foot long forks, and you could stab the food, but you can't get it to your mouth. And everyone's just flinging food around, trying to get it, but they can't get it in their mouth. And we're like, oh, so heaven is everyone has the right size forks. And my dad says, no, heaven, everyone still has 4 foot long forks, but everyone's feeding each other.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I heard
I'm
that
digging
story before.
I'm
It's
digging this.
beautiful. Yeah.
That
Yes.
image has stayed with me since I was a little child, and it just, we're always in heaven and hell. It's all the perspective we choose to see it from, right? And
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's like if everybody was busy feeding the next person, no one would be hungry, you know. Duh. You
yeah.
know, and what's really sad is like I'll see some of these groups, saying things like, whoa, capitalism has lifted so many people out of poverty. And I'm like, dude, you do realize that the whole burst bubble, you know, boom, bust, boom, bust is right here in the heart of capitalism, right here. It's only just a matter of time before they go through their bust, but they don't have like the economic engine that we do to recover. And I said, how do you explain how there was a time where Cuba had a better infant mortality rate than we had in the United States? That's creepy, you know? Um, how is it that we have places where, like, what was it? I am pretty sure I'm pretty sure it was Robert F. Kennedy, where when he was campaigning, he went down to Mississippi. He said, okay, let's be amongst the poor and the da da da. But what he quickly found out that that was just theoretical for him, because when he actually came face to face with, no, this is poverty, really. And when you start to get that for them, this is just how life is, and there is no way out. I mean, yes, there's a way out, but look, if you're in a box and you just don't know anything, it's no different than being in a prison cell, right? And when he got that, he just broke down into tears. And I've been fortunate enough to, I've never been a billionaire, or anything like that. but I've been fortunate enough to have seen just enough, just enough. I handed some kid, in India, like $5. I was on my way out. I gave him $5. Now, of course, at that age, your kid begging on the streets, what $5 US is. That's like 8 gazillion rupees, right? And he goes, okay, this is, thank you, sir. Thank you. And he was like, and, you know, because like, really, dude, why $5? Why am I going to hold on to that? And, so a little compassion wouldn't hurt. A little extra generosity wouldn't hurt. It doesn't mean we have to give away everything, and it doesn't mean we have to now have Charles Manson living next door to us to prove that we are so open. Compassion, but you don't have to be stupid either. There are people out there that mean you harm, and you need to protect yourself. So.
And then can you have, so you were at the beginning, you were talking about, I believe, like good and evil, right? So you can look at it however you want to, but I believe part of that is the experiences that led people to be that way.
Yes.
more than that they were born that way, right?
Yes.
They're they always say, right, it's not power that is good or bad, or money that is good or bad. It's they're magnifiers, right?
Yes.
If you're good, you're going to do good with power, you're going to do good with money. Now, humans are corruptible too, right?
Right.
And we just it gets a little bit in our heads, but ultimately I believe that we come in good, and then life happens, and life happens, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You
yeah.
get hit over the head enough times, and you're like, oh, fuck this, right?
Right. Yeah.
You
I got
know?
hit over the head for about 40, 50 odd. Yeah. Yeah. Eventually I
Yeah.
said, yeah, F this.
Not anymore. We're not going to play this game this way anymore. So,
Well, it's an interesting point you make, because the thing is like I'm still like dealing with all of this, where there are times then we have to take into into account, like, say, the well-being, right? So how is it that like there's one that everyone knows about. It's the guy, he was like a nice guy. He was working on some railroad thing, and there was an explosion, and the spike, went through, like, and it pierced a part of his brain, and he was never the same again, right? But he lived. They had to wrap him up. I mean, it was a miracle that he lived. But he became like this nasty person, right? And what boggles my mind is, like, what's inside of a human? Like, how did nasty come out of a damaged brain? There was one case of a guy who, I wish I could remember it. He wrote a letter to someone in power, and basically said, look, there's something wrong with me. And anyway, eventually he became a murderer. And they found that there was some problems, I think, around anyway, there were some problems with some parts of his brain. And there's this part of me that wants to go, how about why is it that when we get brain damage, why can't we become saints? Well, actually, some people kind of do, now that I remember, where they come out of like some fever or some coma, and they come out with like an extraordinary ability, um so on. So there's a behavioral aspect, you know, uh, how you were raised, everything, and then all the stuff that happened to you. And then there's like that physical thing. Like, can we look at a brain and go, we need to keep an eye on this one, that kind of thing.
there's always the nurture versus nature, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we had somebody come to school, and he was talking about addictions, right? Of course, because every school has some lecture about addictions and whatever. But this guy quite interestingly said that on a PET scan, you can discover there is a part of the brain that will light up if you're prone to addictions, right?
Okay.
And so, like, he would advocate for every child getting a PET scan, so you then can, as parents, guide them to educate them and guide them, right? but there is certain parts that are nature, and there's a
Yeah.
lot to be said about nurture, right? So
Yes.
it's always both, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
No, it's good. Because earlier when you asked about like, like I said, like my superpower is like insight. It's something to what you just said. Every now and then I'm finding myself going through something not great, like nothing awful, but it's like, what, like, those moments where you're like, why am I like this? Right? Whenever that happens, I go, oh, is this one of those things that keeps happening, but you never see yourself getting into it? And then what I found over the years is like, I have little things that I do to interrupt it. I need to find a few more, to be quite honest, but it's so cool. Like Landmark actually gave me one thing that's been amazing. They gave me making a list. Someone said, in a CS program said, okay, here's your open items list, right? It's just a checklist, right? How impactful can that be? It altered things in my life, like altered them. Well, almost to the point where in some cases, I even stopped making lists about those areas about my life because it became automatic. It takes something for me to identify because I'm generally blind to that. And it's not until I get to that point where it's like, why? And then suddenly the insight comes in. I'm like, oh, okay. I make my little list, and then it takes something to manage it. I'm not gonna lie, it's not, yay, I got a list. Now everything's perfect. No, it's generally a few months of like, ugh. but but
Well,
eventually at some
that's so
point,
human, right? The whole resistance, and it's like, oh, why do I have to do this? And
right?
why cannot somebody else take care of my stuff, or whichever
Yes,
version of that it is, right? So, Herman, let me just ask you the last one.
yes,
So
yes, please.
what is the legacy you want to leave? Like, what do you want people to remember about you? What's the legacy you want to leave?
uh I couldn't care less about people. I just want my son happy. I let them remember about me whatever they want. I just want my son happy. If there is a thing, and if there's such a thing as an afterlife, and I can look down and I see my son smiling and doing things he likes, everything, everything I did, everything I experienced would have been worth it. There's just nothing. I mean, and my God, I love my. If my son were to come into the room right now, right, the first thing he does, he checks to see where the flute is, so he can like not go around. He goes around it because he knows that could be his death, right? That's how much. But so it sounds weird. I love him more than I love my flute. But I mean, all joking aside, that boy is my heart. I can't. It's like I can't breathe. Like the thought of just anything bad happening to him, just like almost just just cripples me. And so, you know, to have my boy happy, that's everything. All the rest is this, you know, vanity, I guess.
I guess what you want people to remember about you is your deep, deep, deep love for your son.
Okay, that's that's for them. It's
Yeah, no, but it really, it seems that's just, that's what you would be known as, right? That person. And not
yeah.
you're doing it for them, but that's what you would be known as.
Okay, yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's an odd thing because I spend so much time either practicing or doing this or doing that, doing this or doing that, and all that's left for me is like the guy who helped coach soccer, and some of these kids were not fun, but I loved going there every week, and I've broken up a few things where they allow some things up here because the parents are a little bit more permissive. And one of the kids ran up to me because like one of the older kids kept messing with him. So, hey coach, can you and I just walked up to the other kid and said, hey, come here, come here, come here. He says, yeah. I said, hit him again, you're gonna have a problem. Are we good? And he goes, yes, sir. And that's it. It didn't take anything major. But the thing is, like, they knew that there was going to be one guy that was actually going to stop it for them. And you know, this woman turned to me and says, "Oh my God, I didn't know how I would have handled it." And I'm like, "Don't be afraid of the kids. They're kids." You know, I mean, if they were 7 feet tall with the, you know, okay, maybe there's an issue there, but you know, they're teenagers. They're just being silly. You know, but
Yeah, but
for me,
it also feels like you were a stand for them, right? They knew you were
100%.
safe. You're a safe person for them. You know, one of the things that keeps swirling in my mind, and I'm just going to ask you here, do you have any recordings of your flute playing? Is there anything that we could put on the, you know, in the notes for the people listening, so that they want to share? And I know you're quite
Yeah,
critical, but you know,
yeah.
um,
No,
You
wow.
can think about it and send it
Yeah.
to us in the future because you'll have a few months before we post this. So
Well, you know, I tell you what I'll do. I'll whip out something, and at some point I'll play a little bit of Amazing Grace for you.
oh,
Um,
that's
we'll
beautiful.
see, we'll see how that works out. I played it at my mother's funeral, and you know, it was just it was just wonderful. You know, I just got to be there with my mom and my flute, and she's responsible for me playing the flute. We came here to the United States, and this woman always had magic. You know how they say black girl magic, right? She always had magic around her. Like, so when she was working on Sinai Hospital, the woman working next to her just happened to be the aunt of the flutist of the principal flutist of the American Symphony Orchestra. You know, and I got to play recorder. She had and then a few years later, I meet him, and then all of a sudden I'm at Music and Art. He went to Music and Art. I'm playing this, and I got to play with the Philharmonic a couple of times, and so on and so forth. And my mother started that, you know. So
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Yes, that would be beautiful if you could do that.
absolutely, no, kind of give me a couple of days. I'll get something over to you.
Very good.
Yay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Herman, for being here. That was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And thank you, all of you out there, for listening. And if you love this, please leave us a review. Please share, and share some more the magic.
Yes.
Herman's magic, right? And please remember that you are extraordinary.
Wow.
You rock.
As well as you, ladies. Yeah, this was fun.
Yay. Until next time, everyone.
Okay, hasta luego. Okay, bye bye.